Hello and welcome to Mona Lisa Has No Eyebrows, a podcast about art, artists, and artworks, and the wacky weirdos and wahoos within. My name is Michael, and I'm joined here by Stephanie and May. And each episode, we share and discuss facts about art, and so without further ado, we are starting off with fact number one, and that is Stephanie.
Oh, okay.
Ah.
So, as you can see behind me, this painting is by David Hockney, and it is okay, you guys know that I'm obsessed with cats. So I was thinking about finding artwork with cats, and I distinctly remember this painting. I saw it somewhere, maybe LACMA, someplace like that, and I was thinking, well, that might be a good one to get into. And so this one is by David Hockney, and it was painted between 1970 and 1971, in case you couldn't tell by the clothes. And so it depicts the fashion designer Ossie Clark, who was the guy. He was the best man at Hockney's wedding, and the textile designer Celia Burtwell shortly after their wedding, with one of the couple's cats on Clark's knee. So the white cat's real name is Blanche, but Hockney named it Percy because I guess in British slang, Percy refers to penis. He's sitting there on the guy's lap and is erect.
Nice.
And so it's really kind of crazy why he painted it that way, because he knew about this affair that the guy was having, and it was not a happy marriage, and it sort of like foretold their eventual separation, this couple. And it was just really fascinating, because how weird to have this like artwork like right after you get married, and then like it's foretelling the doom of your marriage.
Right.
That is just like kind of I don't know, kind of like
right.
scary, like, sort of like weird. And if you look at the painting, they don't look all that happy either. They look pretty gloomy, and he uses like a lot of this formal there's definitely this like thing in the middle where there is the the separation of the
void
couple
between them.
Yeah. So there's this gulf, and so what kind of turned out as like a cute cat painting is really like something a little darker. And so I guess this guy continued to have affairs with men and women, and so their marriage broke down in 1974. So that's the story of the painting.
Very nice.
Wow. Who would have known?
Who would have known? And the couple is really interesting too. I looked them up, look into them. Apparently they're the ones responsible for like the modern catwalk show, with all the celebrities and music attending, stuff like that. Because they were both like fashion designers, textile designers, right?
Yeah.
And I like this, that he attended Regional College of Art in Manchester at age 16, and apparently he had to get up every morning. It was a long trip from where he lived, and his mom pumped him like full of caffeine pills and other drugs to stay awake and alert, and that developed his addiction throughout his life.
Yeah, it's interesting that you say that, because I was watching a bunch of interviews that he was talking in, and he was saying like even to this day he still is just constantly working. Like he wakes up and he gets to work, so it sounds like maybe he was taught while he was young, and he just kept the practice going.
I
a
like
lot of
it.
energy, working, having affairs,
right. But that's why, apparently he's on the fashion designer on the level of like, Klein and Saint Laurent or whatever. But I never really heard of him. I guess, he's not, outside of that world, he's not that popular. But yeah,
well,
have you...
pretty huge that they sort of invented like that whole catwalk.
Right, exactly. Have you guys ever heard of this slang Percy? I've never heard of it.
No.
No, me neither.
Must be very British.
I guess so. I guess so.
Right?
It's a very, very nicely rendered cat. It's really
Very-
cool.
Oh, speaking of rendering, so apparently Hockney is not that good at drawing. You guys know this?
Like, did you hear something about the feet? Like, he kind of made the guy's feet go into the carpet
Oh
because
yeah, because he couldn't paint them. Yeah. Classic.
Yeah, I read that he had to ask him to model like something like 18 times or something just to get the drawing down.
Yeah. No, yeah. Apparently, I was reading a lot about his. He has this theory. Have you guys heard about this? The Hockney Falco theory? Yeah, Hockney Falco theory, where he thinks that like realistic painting as old masters did is like basically impossible to do. Like the way to paint like Vermeer did is impossible for a human. So what the old masters did is they used a bunch of like camera obscura and devices like that to like project reality onto a canvas and then trace it. And he's got this whole documentary and books and interviews where he puts forward this theory because, and he says that, you know, like the evidence is that it's too hard to do and that he can't do it. So he's not that very good at drawing, and he has this whole theory. Like I said, it's very serious. He's very serious about it. He's got documentaries and books with some other guy, and yeah, he just doesn't think that it's possible to draw realistically.
Well, I mean, I think he's a really great artist,
Yeah.
but I mean, you know, rendering like the old masters rendered wasn't really his forte.
You know.
But to
Yeah.
say that like it's impossible to do is kind of funny because so many
Right.
people have done it.
Right?
You know?
Yeah.
I mean, even if you trace the thing, you still have to paint it. You know.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But
No,
just
it's
because, yeah, it's impossible for him. you
Yeah.
know?
It's interesting that you bring that up, Michal, because there is maybe Vermeer will be a good person for us to talk about in a later episode, because there's a whole, I don't know if this is the same documentary you're talking about, but there's a whole documentary about how like Vermeer paintings in general are all impossible. Like there have been artists and curators and scientists that have like studied his paintings, and they refer back to the camera obscura to get all the detail down, because the technology just wasn't really available back in the day in terms of like being able to photograph something and then being able to reproduce something so realistic. Yeah.
It might be, if it's not the same, it's definitely like his idea.
Interesting. I didn't know that Hockney kind of like focused in on that theory, but something that's specific about this painting that to bring us back. Again, I was watching these interviews earlier, and there was a questioner that asked Hockney, what attracts you about the double portrait? Because, you know, he likes to paint a lot of portraits of people, and then sometimes he'll get the double portrait. And it's funny, he responds as, well, it's twice as interesting as the single portrait.
Nice. Yeah.
So it's interesting, not only does he develop a sort of story between the two people, but as Stephanie elaborated on, it's a story that you didn't expect, especially when the painting was for the married couple, and it ended up being a premonition of their doom in a sense.
Right. Yeah. And it's and the two-figure painting, that's his I think best-selling or like most expensive artwork, is the self-portrait of him standing on the edge of a pool and him swimming underneath the water, and that sold for $90 million.
Yeah. And the most expensive painting by a living artist sold at auction.
Actually, later eclipsed by Jeff Koons.
That's right, yeah. But at the time.
And I think now it's Jean Basquiat is most expensive. He's not living, but most expensive American artist. But yeah, he sold that. They said that, I think, if I remember correctly, the dealer sold it for $18,000. And then, like, a few months later, someone sold it for like $30,000, and then it just kept rising from there to 90.
Wow.
Crazy.
So you know what? I wonder if he got any kind of residuals from those subsequent sales, or if it's just like a one-time thing. And it's so interesting because today I was attending a workshop where we talk about artist contracts and how. You know, like there's more of a movement for artists to want to assert their rights to the ownership. because of that, art flipping. It's so common now, and the prices just go up so exponentially that artists just lose out on millions and millions of dollars. I mean, if your art sells for that much to begin with, obviously. But so that's really interesting. I wonder how Hockney fared.
Yeah, well, he fared very well, but yeah.
Yeah, I would say that at the end, but it is interesting. It's a curious thought based off of that specific one. But I don't know. I thought maybe we could touch a little bit on his pool paintings, his California of pool. Did you guys know that he was inspired by this magazine cover of pool maintenance?
Yeah, I saw that. Yeah.
Yeah.
The cover looks exactly like his famous splash paintings.
Yeah.
It's like exactly the same.
Yeah, he made 3 different renditions from that painting or from the magazine cover. And then it ended up being like this amazing piece of art. So it's so interesting how the inspiration can come from something so mundane and unexpected, and then all of a sudden, hey, 90 million at auction.
Right. Crazy. But
it goes to show you inspiration is everywhere.
Right. Pool maintenance.
Yeah, exactly.
But yeah, he came across under kind of a fire recently in the age of COVID. Did you guys hear what he said?
Oh, no.
No? He's like a lifelong smoker, and he said that smokers have developed an immune system for COVID.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, he's like, I smoked for more than 60 years, but I think I'm quite healthy.
Okay, dude.
Yeah, okay, dude.
Sure, why not?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, he's still alive, so I guess he has some sort of reprieve for that, I guess.
Yeah, few of the people who live to like 113, 114 smoked cigarettes, so there's more to it than that. But yeah. And yeah, and then also apparently he's he's got synesthesia. It said on Wikipedia.
Oh, really?
So yeah, that's kind of weird, but I've not seen it mentioned anywhere else but Wikipedia.
That's interesting. So then, does he see colors as like sounds?
Yeah. So it says synesthetic associations between sound, color, and shape. Whatever that means.
Well, I think, I feel like that kind of speaks to all the colors that he uses in his work. Like, I don't know if you guys are familiar with his iPhone and iPad paintings.
Yes.
They're so great. There's so much to unfold with Hockney. It's like ridiculous. But he uses color, very heavily in a lot of his work. Related to the drawings that he makes. So I wonder if that relates in the sense that it elevates. Yeah,
and that's why he said he liked California, because it's always sunny and colorful and there's a lot of oranges and stuff. But yeah, his iPad drawings are one of the first things of his I came across, and a lot of them are just like something like a child would draw. And then I was like, what is this? Like, this is a celebrated artist. It's one of those things where it's like, my kid could do that.
Well, because I think, he's drawing on the iPhone.
Yeah,
with his finger.
exactly.
I mean, you can imagine what it might be like when somebody's just starting out.
Yeah, it's crazy.
I have some real awkward first attempts at digital art, or like phone art.
Finger painting, digital finger painting.
Right. Now I have my iPad with like the Apple Pencil, with like a special screen cover and all that. So it's a lot nicer, but
Very nice.
Yeah, you build it up.
Anything else on Hockney?
I mean, we could do a whole episode on Hockney,
yeah.
But I feel like that covered it pretty well.
Okay, I'm happy with it. And now time for fact number 2, which is May's fact.
Okay, so my fact, let me pull my notes up here. Okay, so my fact is about Chris Burden. And Chris Burden was an American artist working in performance, sculpture, and installation art. Burden became known in the 1970s for his performance artworks, including Shoot in 1971, where he arranged for a friend to shoot him in the arm with a small caliber rifle. So the fact is basically about his performance of shoot. So let me tell you a little bit about Chris. He went to UC Irvine for his master's in 1970. And he actually, before he ended up there, he wanted to be an architect. And he went to school for architecture, and he was in class, and he saw all his fellow classmates working, and realized that his professor, or the people that his classmates ended up working for, were these older gentlemen that have established their career in architecture. And he realized that he wasn't going to get anywhere fast if he remained in that field. So then he switched over to sculpture. And when he started at UC Irvine, his thesis piece was this piece called 5-Day Locker. I don't know if you guys read anything about it, but basically he locked himself into a locker and just stayed in there for 5 days. So Chris kind of started to change the art scene in terms of performances, where he would do these really, really ridiculous things. So eventually he ended up getting to shoot. And it was performed in the F space at UC Irvine, November 19th of 1971. And the intention for the piece was for Chris's friend to literally shoot Chris's left arm. And the intention was only to have it be like a scratch or a quick graze. So no harm was to be done. But of course, when you're dealing with a gun, it's not that simple. And it ended up being that Chris got a pretty, his arm was shot through, literally. It wasn't just a simple graze. So there wasn't any first aid kit available. There weren't any bandages. They weren't expecting it to go wrong. For some reason, they were just, art students that are like, we're going to do this. It's going to be great. And no one really prepared for any danger or any negative effects. So the bullet did go through his arm. Rather than just grazing it. And after the performance, the literal action of the bullet and the blood starting to come out of the bullet wound, they had to go and file a police report because, you can't just kind of, okay, we did this and Chris, you'll be fine. Goodbye. Thanks. So when he went to file the police report, the police were very skeptical and they didn't understand, how did this happen? What, you're coming in so casually and there's nothing crazy's happening. And so they thought maybe his wife, they had a fight or something. No, nothing. So basically he ended up getting treated for it. There was a police report filed, but nothing came of it. His friend just kind of, he was part of the performance willingly. Mm-hmm. And this is what got Chris on the roadmap for becoming a very famous performance artist. So yeah, that's my full fact. I know it's a lot, but it's pretty interesting stuff.
The shot heard around the art world. I do remember learning about it, in school, and that was like a really big deal. And I watched the documentary that May watched.
Mm-hmm.
We're kind of frozen here.
Yeah, I noticed.
Okay. So yeah, when I watched the documentary was really great, by the way. Both of your documentaries.
Mm-hmm.
But I do remember. So I was thinking, after watching the documentary and looking up all these other things that he's done. I mean, the shoot wasn't even like some of the craziest stuff he's done.
Right.
Like the whole nailing himself to the Volkswagen. I mean, that's pretty crazy. Shooting guns at planes flying out of LAX. I'm just like thinking, okay, what kind of white male privilege, he must have enjoyed. Like, if that had been like an artist of color who had done that, they might still be in jail for all we know. You know what I mean?
A Muslim
that's
artist?
a great point.
Yeah, absolutely. But I mean, however it happened, like, I really do think he was an incredible artist. It was very impressive, and I like it that he got past that to the point where now, his most popular works are the LACMA, the street lights and the metropolis. I remember when I found out who had done those, I was like, oh my God, it was that guy? That crazy guy.
No, you don't connect it, right? Because you hear about Chris Burden in his later work, and it's like, oh, cool, urban lights, looks great, I love it. Let me go take a photo. You know, LACMA has the whole facade for that. But yeah, you look into his earlier work, and you're like, he did this? Like, what? This is nuts. But that was the whole point. He wanted to do these crazy things because that's kind of how you become such a famous artist, and that you get the attention and people become interested.
Right. And he is when people think about an artist, like not a painter, but an artist with a capital A, you know, wearing a beret and sunglasses, he is kind of like the archetype. And not only that, but a few of his pieces are kind of playing to that. He's got one called Shadow from 1976. He said he spent a day at Ohio State University trying to fit people's preconceived notion of an avant-garde artist by remaining aloof and wearing sunglasses. So that's a performance piece. And there's also Garçon from the same year, where he served cappuccino and espresso to visitors at San Francisco Gallery. So that's some kind of art performance somehow. But I think one of my favorite ones is Doomed. No, not Doomed, sorry. Shout piece. It's kind of close to Shoot. You guys heard about this one?
Out.
Yeah.
Refresh our memory.
So this was in Santa Ana, California. I love it for some reason. I don't know why. Okay, so this is his exact quote. I was seated on a platform suspended 14 feet above the floor. My hair was braided and my face was covered with red bloody paint. 4 500-watt movie lights were placed around me facing the front entrance of the space. My voice was amplified by three speakers. As people entered the gallery, I repeatedly yelled at them, "Get the fuck out! Get out immediately!"
Yeah.
Because the sound was very loud and contained high-frequency feedback, most people left quickly. I don't know. I would just like to see it, actually.
I mean, can you imagine you're just walking in somewhere? It's like, what?
Get the fuck out!
Like,
get out now!
Get out of here. You know, actually, the weirdest and most scary one, it was from that documentary, was it the TV Hijack? Or I think that's what it was called. So he was being interviewed on this like TV show, this art program, whatever. And it was like a female presenter. And they were just talking. And then all of a sudden, he got up and held a knife to her neck and said, okay, you know, you guys better start broadcasting this or something, you know? And so after, I think he was on the air for about 20 seconds, they said, and then it was over. That was the performance. And so afterwards he destroyed the tapes. Like he took the tapes and destroyed them, but there were some still photos from that performance. And you know, in the documentary, they interviewed the woman presenter who was in there, and she was like, yeah, it was terrifying. You know, she had no idea if he was really going to do something. And in the photo, you look at her and she, you know, she really is like in fear for her life. Again, anybody else, and they would have been like immediately thrown in jail or something. I don't know. It's, you know.
No, it's a great point that you bring up. I think that was his intention, though, you know, like to go as far as he could and push the privilege, because he even, speaking to that piece, I remember he was saying he called a few times to confirm, like, are you sure you want me to come on your show? And maybe in a sense, he was trying to push any blame onto her by saying, well, she said I could do it, or, you know, like she invited me. So it's interesting that you bring that point up, Stephanie, but I think his intention was really to just make it as obscure and scary almost as possible.
And like, you know, your first thought is like, man, this guy's a jerk, you know, but no, he really is a provocateur, but he really makes you think. And you know, I gotta give him credit for that. He's not just a crank. He's not, you know, just like just some wacko guy who's just doing it to just, you know, fuck around or whatever. I mean, I really, yeah, I do think he's a very important artist. But, and then when he started teaching, there was that incident where a student of his tried to emulate what he did with shoot and brought a gun to class. And they're like, no, we got to shut this down. And, you know, he agreed with that. So it's kind of weird. Like, so he got to do it. And I'm sure his students are like, well, why can't I push the envelope or whatever? And like, May, as an instructor, like, what do you, like, how do you feel about that? Like,
yeah, you know, I think it speaks to our day and age as well, very much so, because not only was crime and really scary things like that considered not as scary in the past, like, you know, there were a lot more things that were able to get by. And considering today's day and age, and considering just where we are as society right now, that things like that have to be labeled as no, and don't even think about it. And if you go that direction, you're not going to be able to just get by because it's a performance piece, even though someone's done it before in the past. It's just not, there's so many safety trainings and protocols put in place today that were not put in the past that did the same restrictions. So I think, to speak to a voice of professors who would, you know, if some student, even if it was an art student, even if it was Chris Burden of today that came in and said, oh, it's just a performance piece, sorry, not anymore, you can't do that kind of, you just can't, it's just not. But to go back just a little bit, but speaking on the same note, Chris, when he started to become quite popular as a topic in the newspaper, people started coining him as the Evel Knievel of the art world, because, you know, Evel Knievel is like same level almost. But Chris didn't like to be termed as that. He didn't like the association because he felt that Evel Knievel was a trickster. And his intention with his performances was to elevate the art. So it also comes from two different worlds. So maybe if you ask the same question of today in a different part of the country or a different group of people, you know, it all kind of changes the perspective as well.
very true.
And have you guys read about the friend, going back to the shoot piece, the friend who actually did the shooting?
Oh yeah.
You know about him?
I know a little bit.
Yeah.
What do you have to say?
What I have to say is that interesting thing is that he learned marksmanship. He was drafted to the Vietnam War, but he never went. But he learned marksmanship in a boot camp. So in a way, the piece was subsidized by U.S. government, so to speak, if you think about it that way. And then second interesting fact is that he was like an art student along with Burden, but afterwards he became an accountant, which is almost like an anti-artist profession, you know? When it's like the most stifled kind of, you know, cubicle and suit type of a profession you can think of.
Maybe after that experience, he was like,
fuck that. Art's not for me.
And then I think, like, for the 10th anniversary, on some anniversary of shoot, like, I think Chris wanted like to shoot the guy.
Yeah.
Like that.
Yeah. No, he asked his assistant. He was like, hey, I'm going to shoot you now. And his assistant was like, what are you talking about? No, thank you.
The assistant was Jonathan Gold, the famous late food writer for the LA Times. I was like, oh my God, that's Jonathan Gold.
Oh my God.
It was just so wild. I mean, that was like a really great documentary. I enjoyed it very much.
Yeah, I highly recommend.
Yes. So speaking of documentaries.
And that brings us to fact number 3, which is my fact, and that is that a Polish artist, Stanisław Szukalski, learned anatomy by coming across the body of his father after a car accident and performing a dissection on it. So this is from the 2018 documentary that was made by, produced by Leonardo DiCaprio about the artist Stanisław Szukalski, a Polish sculptor who was lived most of his life in America. And in the documentary, he states that when he lived in Chicago as a young boy, he was walking home one day and just came across a crowd. And when he made his way to the front, he saw that it was his body of his dad, and he was hit by a car. And apparently, he said he carried the body to the morgue and asked the guy if he could do a dissection, and they let him. And that's what he claims. His friend Ben Hecht, a famous movie producer, put that in his biography. And whether it's true or not, I don't know, but that's his fact. So yeah, that's I think that's one of the... Until May's fact, I thought my guy was pretty crazy. But but my guy's pretty crazy too. So yeah, May, you said that you only watched half of the documentary?
So I've been busy. I apologize,
yeah.
But I've only
It's okay.
From what I gathered, from what I did see, I mean, just to say off the bat, his work is amazing. Incredible. I mean, I think from what I remember, he was sent off to school when he was 16 or so, and he produced this amazing sculpture. He was in like the trial where you had to be accepted to the program with like some 30 other artists just as applicants, and he was the youngest one there. It might have even been 14. I don't remember off the top of my head.
It was 14.
But so he started the test, and basically there was a nude model and they had to sculpt the model from what I remember. And not even after like 30 minutes or so, the not the moderator, but the person that was going to basically, the professor that was going to accept you to the program saw what he was working on, and all he did was work on the knee, whereas everyone else is like trying to figure out the form and this and that. All he worked on was on the knee, and that's it. He was like, yes, you're accepted. You've become part of the program. It's crazy.
It's crazy.
Like, and then you look at his work that he's made throughout his life, and it's just like, where has this guy been in the history books?
Right.
Like, I think the documentary touches on it, and it's like, how did he not like become part of history, art history? It's crazy.
Yeah. Stephanie, you've seen the whole thing, right?
I did see the whole thing.
Yeah.
So what I thought was really interesting, that part where he sculpts the knee and they're like, yes, you're in. And then he finds out that he has to work from models.
Yeah.
And he's like,
oh, yeah.
I'm out.
I'm out, yeah.
That's right.
I'm like, this guy was ballsy, you know?
Yeah.
I mean, and then so he leaves, he, is doing his own thing, and he like hooks up with some wealthy heiress. And I mean, this guy, his story is just so amazing. You just cannot make it up.
Oh, yeah.
So, what I thought was really neat about him was finding out that the guy from Tool was a fan of his.
Right?
The guitarist from Tool. And I was like, wow. Because I remember, when Tool was out in the early 90s, that one video that they had, I don't know if you guys ever saw it, but they used stop motion. And at the time, it was like really different, very different from your standard, music video. And so they cite the influence as these guys named the Brothers Quay, who do these like really like eerie, like stop motion figures and things like that. But I mean, I can certainly see like where, the aesthetics of Szukalski is like very much in line with like the kind of stuff, the music and then other influence that they, have. So it just like all kind of fits in. And, it was just like that documentary was just like, wow, like various stages of your mind being blown by this guy. Totally. And then for him to just wind up in LA and being forgotten was just so sad. Until he kind of got rescued by that one dude and the lowbrow movement.
Yeah, right? Yeah, it's kind of weird. He was, because of Glenn Bray, that was his name. He was just a collector, really. He was, I've read that he was just like a retired hardware store owner and then he was just collecting art randomly, comic book art, magazine art. And yeah, he just found out that the guy was living like 5 miles from him or something. This like artist, because this was the 70s, and Shukalsky really was most famous during the 30s before World War II. So it's you wouldn't think that a World War II artist would be living next to you, still alive. But yeah, it's crazy. I especially like the pictures of Shukalsky with young Leonardo DiCaprio, right? Because he was friends with his dad. So that's a crazy connection, and then Leonardo ended up producing the documentary. And then apparently Leonardo DiCaprio helped put on a show at Laguna Beach Art Museum of Shukalsky's work. So that was great. I wish I could have attended that.
Really surprised to find out about that. I'm like, really? The Laguna Art Museum of all places?
Right?
I would have thought it would be someplace in LA. I mean, so much of his, devotees and, all of them are kind of in LA. So I wonder what the Orange County connection was, that was fascinating.
Right. Yeah.
Also, I wonder if Leonardo DiCaprio is going to end up looking like his dad. He was like, kind of
right.
Do you remember what he looked like, May?
Yeah.
No.
Maybe you didn't get to that yet. But
yeah, I might not have gotten there.
Yeah, he's just a guy with a goatee, long black hair, and a ponytail.
I was watching the documentary, and my husband was walking behind me. He's like, "Is that Gene Simmons?" From Kiss. And I'm like, "No, that's Leonardo DiCaprio's dad." Right. He's like got like long black dyed hair and goatee, and wow, it's kind of crazy.
Very bohemian, right? No, Leonardo DiCaprio got too rich too early to look anything but handsome. But yeah, so this guy so interesting. But
I mean, as a Polish person, like how long were you in Poland? Till how old?
I left when I was 14, basically.
Oh.
So I was vaguely aware of Shukalsky, but I wasn't really into art until I was 19, basically. So it's like I just heard about him. But I wasn't that familiar. But yeah, one of the reasons he's so unknown is that basically all his work was lost in World War II. He was invited by the Ministry of Treasury or whatever, of Polish Treasury, to go to Poland and do all these works, and they would pay him and support him and build him a museum. So he was like, fuck yeah. And then that was 1936, I believe. I'm not sure if I have it in my notes, and then 1939, Poland gets bombed by the Nazis, so all his works apparently get destroyed or stolen in the war, or most of them, and he has to flee to California, and he's got nothing left, and that's where he kind of goes into obscurity. And all he did, apparently, he said that some work for movie studios, and then he developed his theory of Zermatism, which I think May hasn't gotten to yet, if she hasn't seen the documentary. Which,
I have so much to watch.
No, but you'll like this, I think. But yeah. So until then, he's discovered in the 70s by Glenn Bray. But yeah, that's why he's only done 3 or 4 major works after World War II. That's why he's super obscure. But Stephanie, what'd you think about Zermatism?
Pretty wacky.
So,
I'm not really into religion in general. That said, it doesn't make it any less valid than any other religion in my eyes. It's just basically a guy who said, "Hey, let's believe this." And some people said yeah, and other people said no. And he came up with his own writing and all this.
May. So the Zermatism, it's this theory that Shukalsky had that after the Great Flood, the Great Biblical Flood, basically all humanity came from Easter Island. And they spoke a language that was it was like a primitive language, but it was very similar to Polish because he was a very Polish nationalist. And apparently humanity was locked in an eternal struggle with the sons of Yeti, the offspring of Yeti and humans who had enslaved humanity from time immemorial. So he had like these like 40 or something binders of this writing about this subject and illustrated, with his beautiful artworks and all these like evidence from history, and just binders and binders full. And that was like his life's work for most of his life, I guess. Yeah, I think after the war, that's what he devoted himself to.
Wow.
Which is so wacky. And yeah.
Does that relate to? I did see the part where he made his own alphabet.
Oh, right. Yeah, that was crazy.
Does that relate?
No, not really. That alphabet thing was crazy. They didn't really explain it that well. They just said like he wrote in it, but he obviously wrote in like normal writing as well. But
yeah. Well, I thought it was really interesting because he was doing that, and then his teacher came to his father and said he can't be doing this, he needs to learn actual alphabet. And his father said, as long as he's doing the work, what do you care? Something along those lines, so I think it's interesting because it speaks to his character of just being this person who believes very much in himself and not others, and doesn't even consider like the principles of art to be part of his, and his work is so beautiful. So it's an interesting perspective to think about this artist who got lost in time due to the war, but the work is so amazing and valid that you just start to think about like, okay, so someone that can be so successful in practice doesn't always end up successful in the art world necessarily, because he doesn't fit into the same box. Or and that's tough to say because art is ridiculously subjective and objective and all the things, but someone that had great technical talent, even with this obscure mindset, developed such amazing stuff. So it's interesting to think about all of his theories and his concepts and reasonings, and then just see his work and just be like, where was the disconnect? So was it because of this? Was it because of the way he thought or history, or did he just not fall into the right path of someone that would have taken his work somewhere else?
Right, it's crazy. And even he says in the documentary, he was like, I was never referred to by any other adjective other than genius. Like very very cocky, but also kind of true, especially his the work that the documentary is named after, The Struggle, which is that hand of the sculpture where every finger is like an eagle. And he talks about how, the opposable thumb is the reason we have, civilization and technology and everything. And it's like the struggle between the quality of a thumb and the quantity of just normal fingers, and how it's like a symbolism of the struggle in the society between, geniuses and just normal people, and, the masses and stuff like that. And it's like, not only is it great sculpture technically, but then you have these like symbolism and metaphor and all these like subtle nuances to it, this story. So it's great artwork all around. And it's crazy that he's been so forgotten, but there's just so many examples of artists, whether it's painters or novelists or musicians who at the time are branded like this is the greatest artist of all time. His works will never be forgotten, and then 10 years later nobody knows about them. It's just it's like almost someone who is remembered is the exception to the rule.
Like I was thinking a lot about like how his experience is so different from like somebody like Van Gogh, right? I mean, he's always held up as this example of his life was miserable. He never saw any of his posthumous glory and success, blah, 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 The thing with Tchaikovsky is he had that glory and success. He tasted it. And then it was gone. And then he spent like another 40 years in obscurity. And I don't know. It's kind of like, is it better to have loved, and lost than not to have loved at all?
Right.
Yeah.
I don't
know. It's a great question.
It's like either way could drive you crazy.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
So it was just like a very interesting case. Um, he was spent probably as much time being unfamous as he was famous.
Right, yeah, exactly.
That's long. I mean, he
Yeah.
died when he was like in his early 90s.
Yeah, and it's funny that there's a specific event you can point to where it's like pre and post fame, so to speak, you know? And he was really at the peak of his fame right before he went into obscurity. He did like hundreds of works when he was in Poland, which I don't know how it's possible. I guess if you have assistants, because I'm always like I don't work fast enough. But yeah,
I wonder if he did have assistants.
oh, he must have. He must have,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah,
Especially,
I wonder. Well, if he did, where are they? Where are they today? And did they capture any of
right?
his theory? Like that's an interesting question. But I do want to bring up, and I don't know how relevant this is, but I want to bring up the fact that I only heard about him through you two.
Mm-hmm.
And so if the Netflix documentary wasn't produced,
Mm-hmm.
would he have just disappeared into history, do you think?
Might very well be, right? I
Aside
mean,
from, the few who discovered him, like
yeah.
circle of, friends.
But yeah, but I also think that his story, his work is good enough, obviously, but that's not enough. But I also think his story is crazy enough, and that somebody in the age of internet would eventually find it and be like, "Whoa, what the hell?" and probably go viral on the internet.
Do you think it also has something to do with the fact that he ended up in California as opposed to a different state?
Hmm.
Right? Yeah, I think so. Yeah. It's just more things happen here. The more people who have the connections to make documentaries or bring something to the wider audience, just probability, just numbers game,
Mm-hmm.
right?
But he came out to California because he had connections like in the movie business, right? I think through Ben Hecht.
Yeah, right.
That was sort of the thing.
Yeah.
I did like the part where
Uh-huh.
they showed, those love letters that he sent to his wife with
Uh-huh.
pretty racy drawings in there.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
that's right.
He was quite the ladies' man.
Oh yeah.
Oh, yeah, that's right. There was a little bit about how even when they found him later on in his older days, he was still very much a go-getter
Yeah.
in that sense.
Yeah. The ladies.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, interesting guy.
I also think one thing that's really incredible to me is not even about him, but the guy who kind of rediscovered him, Glenn Bray, is that what they start with is that signature thing, right? The squiggle of the signature is that first he saw just like a squiggle. He didn't know what it was. He thought it was like a drawing of a snake or something on a spine of a book, right? And then later, like years later, he saw a poster with the signature on it. It was the poster of Copernicus, and he recognized the signature. And I don't know about you guys, but I would never have done years after to recognize a bunch of squiggles.
It's interesting that you bring it up because somewhere in the back of my mind, I've seen it too.
Oh yeah?
I don't know where, because I like look through
Uh-huh.
my boyfriend has a lot of art books, so I was like looking through our bookcase and I was like, does he have it? Is that where I
Maybe,
saw it?
right?
Or I'm trying to like think back, did I see it in like a studio somewhere or at an art show that I attended? And I've seen it somewhere, but I can't remember where. So if anyone listening to this episode is like, May, it was my book, you saw it on my library, please tell me, because I'm going crazy trying to remember. But the squiggle is very distinctive.
Yeah.
It's no other artist has made their signature look so much like this does,
Yeah.
So it's interesting to bring it up because you don't recognize it anywhere else. It's very much his.
Squiggle.
I
Yeah.
think maybe it's our primitive memory from our time on Easter Island.
Easter Island, right? Yeah. Exactly. And then I think one of my favorite stories is the one he was asked by the Nazi Party to make a sculpture of Hitler or some kind of
portrait or
sculpture for the German government, and then he took their money, and then he submitted a design of Hitler in a tutu, or a ballerina's dress, and he was never asked to submit another design again. So
There you
yeah,
go.
I'm amazed that they didn't arrest him.
Right.
And apparently they just said,
yeah.
okay. And
Well,
then you never heard from them again.
because this was before the actual invasion of Poland, so this was still kind of government of a different country. But yeah, that was great. And then one last thing is that his ashes after his death were spread on Easter Island.
There you go. Full circle for
Full
you.
circle. That's a spoiler for you, May.
I think I remember seeing an image of Easter Island with his name, so
Yeah.
it's
You
no
knew
worries.
It was gonna happen.
It's no worry. I had a feeling there was a connection
There
there
was a
somewhere.
connection. The funniest connection.
So what I'm kind of curious about is, even after the documentary and the show in Laguna, like, I still don't think he's as prominent
Right?
as he could be. It's kind of interesting. I don't know. I don't know why.
I think, yeah. Well, hopefully this podcast will make him super famous all over the world.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, his work is really, you should just go look at his website. It's like, his work is so amazing, and the attention to detail. And he says that he disregarded all the rules of art and whatnot. But I mean, there's some true talent there that speaks to form and tone and just understanding so much. It's quite beautiful, and hopefully he does end up in the history books at this point, because his work can very much attribute to future studies of sculpture and drawing.
And and he said he never worked from models, he never did any of that, and his work is just such a amazing kind of mishmash of like you have all these like cubism, surrealism, but also you have these like classic Slavic imagery, and also he combines it with a lot of like what they call pre-Columbian art, Aztec and Mayans, and it's just such, I want to almost say, traditional Polish look that he single-handedly created, and I've definitely seen a lot of Polish artists replicate it. It's very standard from that era, so to speak.
But do you think it's standard because of him?
I do think so, yeah. I think he was the one who combined the sort of like the styles that were popular at the time, like, Cubism, all those what you would call modern art, and this just like very Polish, very Slavic, very traditional pagan style, There's a lot of these pagan sculptures that resemble his a lot. And you can definitely see it, the kind of fusion of influences.
So had you known, I mean, you said you sort of knew about him before, but like, did you know about this documentary and you wanted to watch it, or you just kind of happened upon it?
I happened upon it, yeah. I searched for like art on Netflix because I wanted to watch an art documentary, but yeah, I didn't know it. And I'm glad, I saw that it was about a Polish guy, so I was like, hell yeah. Never expected that it'd be so interesting.
Jeez, yeah. Well, I was like thinking, he did this because he's like some great Polish hero. Or
no. But yeah, apparently, that's one of the things they said in the documentary, and I can definitely see it, is that like his message, because he was very like like reject all these or not reject, but use more of Slavic influences in your art, like his message to like the Polish artist was. And so now his message is kind of hijacked by like Polish nationalists to right wingers to be like Poland is only for Polish people and Polish pride, and immigrants get out, that kind of stuff, where he was never like that at all.
They do get into a little bit in the documentary about his
like anti-Semitic writings.
Yeah, like right before the war. But I really do think he genuinely came around after the war, like after the horrors of war.
Yeah.
He realized like how dumb that was.
And, He made a case that they made a case in the documentary that he was like swept in the general anti-Semitism of Europe. And then after the war, he was like, "Oh yeah, that was dumb."
Yeah. I mean, he had like 40 more years to think about it.
Exactly, yeah. And like, yeah, Ben Hecht, who was Jewish, was like his best friend throughout his, youth. So, who knows?
Super fascinating guy.
Super fascinating guy, yeah.
Definitely.
And
But,
he was a genius.
Oh yeah. So yeah, May, you gotta finish the documentary.
Yeah, I'm gonna watch it as soon as we end here. I'm very interested in the rest, and I'm actually kind of inspired for my next fact. So I think,
really?
Yeah, another documentary. I don't know, it kind of sparked, but I already know what my next fact is gonna be.
Nice.
So. Another documentary for you guys in the future to watch.
Ah, nice.
All right.
Nice.
So we're done. We got through it.
Yeah,
You think?
I think so.
Yeah.
Was it good?
That was good. Yeah, I got my background working this time.
Oh, are you in a different room, or what you have to do?
No, I got a green screen.
Oh,
Nice. Perfect. Yeah, it works great.
Yeah.
I like it. I like it a lot.
Thank you.
That